Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't pay any attention to it whatsoever, even though PSG just got bad. Arsenal have been terrible in the league, and it's had absolutely no impact on our Champions League form. So what? But they did get bad. This is today's Arsenal news show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Very much appreciate, you being here and tuning in and listening. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you to all of you joining us live in the chat box. Thank you for those of you that are listening on catch up, and I hope that you've had a fantastic week and now are ready for a weekend without Arsenal. Of course, no Arsenal matches this weekend. There is FA Cup fixtures. There are the Premier League games going on. Today's FA Cup fixture sees Crystal Palace take on Aston Villa at 5:15. If you want to keep up to date with that, we've got a live blog running on the Football.London website this afternoon. And then tomorrow is Nottingham Forest taking on Manchester City in the Premier League this weekend. We've got Chelsea against Everton at 12:30, the early kickoff. Quite a big game for Chelsea that they need to get a win if they want to qualify in the top 5 of the league this season. Brighton against West Ham. Newcastle also looking to get that top 5 finish, taken on Ipswich. Southampton against Fulham. Wolves against Leicester. They're all 3 o'clock kickoffs. And then tomorrow we've got Bournemouth against Manchester United. Liverpool against Spurs, where they can, of course, win the title. And Nottingham Forest against Brentford. So plenty still to happen, plenty still to take place, and looking forward, of course, for a weekend of football that doesn't include us because we've got more time to rest, to recover, recuperate ahead of that game against PSG next week. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat. Good morning to Blackshine and Peter and Zoom, Shari and Rob and Paul. We've got Matt G and Glenn and Brian and Rich. We've got Roy and Runs with Cows, Kaiser, Top Dog, Stevie, Claire. We've got Mike and Matt and John. We've got Chima, Loga, Mark, Jeremy, Franklin. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in. Really appreciate you listening this morning and taking the opportunity out of your weekend to give your views, your thoughts, your opinions, and more in a respectful way around the club that we love so much. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump into today's stories. We begin with that result from last night. Morgan Sanson leading Arsenal's rivals in the Champions League, PSG, to their first league defeat of the season, not in some club in France, but in the Parc des Princes, as PSG lost 3-1 at home to Nice. Nice, of course, are trying to chase a finish in Liga in the Champions League spots. They currently sit 4th in the table. They're now only 1 point behind second place Marseille, and they're level on points with Monaco, who, of course, both have games this weekend. PSG have already won the title, but at this point had so far not lost a single game. There's only 5 games left, of this. Is there 5 games? 4 games? 3 games. 3 games left, I think, of this Liga season. And it will see PSG win the title, of course. They've ran away with it. 24 wins, 6 draws, 1 defeat, and that 1 defeat coming last night. And for those of you that are thinking, well, they probably rested loads of players ahead of that game against Arsenal. No, they didn't. They played the team that many are expecting PSG to start against Arsenal. The only question mark is around Barcola, whether or not he might start the game on Tuesday night. The front 3, Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and Desiree Doué, Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, of course, in their midfield, alongside João Neves, and then a back 4 of Marquinhos and Pacho at the back, with Hakimi and Nuno Mendes in the wing-back positions, with, of course, Donnarumma in goal. It was a very strong PSG team, and they were the dominant side. Let's not get it twisted. They were, without a doubt, the team, of course, that were looking to try and batter this Nice team that had come as pretenders. 32 shots they had on the day. 32 shots. 13 shots on target. To Nice's 7 with 3 on target. They scored all 3 goals they had on target. Bulka, the Nice goalkeeper, having the man of the match performance, without a doubt. Just over giving a bit of a read of kind of the match report on the Google thread that they had. PSG's unbeaten season in Liga is over with just 3 matches of the league season remaining as they fell to a 3-1 defeat at home to Nice. The home side will rue so many missed opportunities through Markin Bulka. Did produce one of the best performances of his career to keep most of the Parisian side superstars at bay and help the visitors to a famous win. He made numerous saves in the first half to deny the likes of Doué and Dembele before the away side took the lead through Sanson. PSG did equalise before half-time as Ruiz applied a finish to a brilliant clipped pass from Dembele. Nice. Nice retook the lead. It's hard when you're reading kind of a descriptive sentence, isn't it, when you've got a team called Nice. Nice retook the lead just 1 minute into the second half after a brilliant acrobatic volley from Sanson. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's brilliant. Nestling in the far corner. They then added from a free kick after 70 minutes through a thumping header from Ndiaye Shimier. PSG applied heavy pressure at times during moments in the second half, but were thwarted by an inspired Bulka who made fine stops to deny Gonçalo Ramos and then Kvaratskhelia. The home side generated an XG of 2.78 to Nice's 0.96. They now must get over the disappointment quickly as they prepare for a crucial first leg of their Champions League semi-final against Arsenal, while Nice, who move up to 4th, face Reims in a week from now. That's all from me. Thank you and goodbye. Goods, whoever it was on the Google commentary for that game, providing some excellent coverage of the fixture, and it was a very disappointing defeat for PSG, setting them up in the worst possible way. Will this have any bearing on the game? Probably not. Probably not. It will have absolutely no bearing. We know that because Arsenal have drawn the last 4 games in the league before they played the next 4 Champions League fixtures, of which they performed entirely differently. Yes, there were changes from those games in terms of lineups. There was obviously a different type of momentum and motivation, but there was still something significantly on the line here for PSG. It was a game kind of when you played as a youngster on FIFA and you would have loads of chances. The keeper made loads of saves and you just couldn't find the back of the net. Unfortunately, it seemed to be one of those games for PSG, and hopefully David Raya will also be in inspired form on Tuesday night and the following week as well. We'll talk more about that PSG game in a little bit because we've got another story on that as well. Before we go to that, a small transfer line for you. Jordan Davies in the Sun reporting that Arsenal are keen to make a £55 million move for Jules Kounde. We know, of course, that Arsenal are interested in Dean Huijsen of Bournemouth, but there are a number of teams that are very interested in the Spanish international. But it might be that Arsenal return for a player that they have had significant interest in for a number of years. While I've personally not heard this story myself for this summer, it is, of course, my understanding that Arsenal's interest in Jules Kounde has been there for a significant period of time. 26 years of age now, has been playing for Barcelona, has been a key starter, a key figure, of course, in that Barcelona side as they have continued to take on Real Madrid. He's won the Copa del Rey, he's won the La Liga, he's won the Europa League, I believe, as well with Sevilla. You know, he's won plenty of not Copa del Rey, Spanish Cup winners twice, of course, Spanish Super Cup winners twice. But yeah, playing plenty, of course, with Barcelona, a key starter for them. 2 goals, 3 assists this season, mainly playing in the right back role, but can play as a centre half as well. I guess it makes sense if they plan on seeing Ben White move more into that right back slot and Timber being used at kind of left back a lot more. Other than that, though, I don't think it actually makes much sense when it comes to kind of adding a player who's more on the right-hand side, especially when you're losing maybe Zinchenko, certainly Tierney, maybe even Kivior. Does it make sense for a right-side defender to come in? I'm not quite sure. Doesn't really work for me. Yeah, it doesn't really work. So let's wait and see. But that is the story coming out the Sun this morning. Moving back to that Tifo news and moving back to the PSG game. Of course, yesterday we discussed the story that not just the Ashburton Army, it turns out, but of course Red Action as well, had designs for Tifos for the game at the Emirates declined. I'd said that I wanted to do a little bit of digging around this story, and I did. And yesterday, I released a piece yesterday afternoon/evening, giving some more details about what actually happened and gave you some actual details as opposed to those that chose to not provide the details, or at least the accurate details of what went down. The reason why these groups sadly had the designs kind of knocked back, if you like, was not because of primarily anyway, the actual designs themselves. I don't think it even got that far of looking at the actual designs. There was a significant time issue between the proposals and the game itself. Now, some people might say, well, Arsenal have known about this game for a hell of a long time. In fact, I did have someone reply to my article saying, Arsenal have known about this for ages. It could have been sorted out ages ago. And the ironic thing here, and while those people may have chosen not to respond to those tweets, the obvious response here is that Arsenal have actually responded, have actually prepared. Arsenal did think ahead in case proposals came in too late, because Arsenal will have now a never before seen Tifo to be hung from the Emirates Stadium roof and kind of the ceiling that goes around the stadium in the North Bank, which has never been done before. It'll be one of the largest Tifos you've ever seen at the Emirates. And of course, Arsenal and the club have been behind preparing for this. There will also be a crowd surfing Tifo expected as well. Red Action reporting this first, was able to confirm this story as well and report it yesterday. But it is clarity that I think a lot of fans hopefully have needed, and clarity that Arsenal fans will have wanted as well. And so that's obviously a very, very positive thing indeed. So there will be a completely new Tifo that will be hung from the roof. Red Action claim that it's a cannon design. I haven't heard specifically what the design is, but it supposedly would be something of a cannon. People still asking what Tifos are. Tifos are basically displays inside stadia. They can be individual people holding up cards, like you can see with the picture on the screen where we have kind of the red and white. That can be considered a Tifo. But at the same time, you can also have kind of the big banners. It's basically another word for a banner. In many ways, that are held up before games, sometimes during games, very rarely though during games, more so in the build-up to kick-off. They're used to help and generate atmosphere, but to be honest, I think whether or not there are Tifos or banners or not, the atmosphere on Tuesday night is going to be absolutely incredible. And that leads us to our last story of the day, which I'm afraid to bring the mood down, but it's not a particularly nice one. Of course, the results of the ballot for those fans that had applied for tickets for the game against PSG have now come out, and it has left, obviously, thousands of fans frustrated that they were unsuccessful in the ballot. I think I've seen some statistics. I haven't been able to confirm these statistics, but there were some running around social media yesterday suggesting that 13% of silver members had been successful and only 3% of red members had been successful. Obviously, there is tens of thousands of red members, of course, so it's unsurprising. And there's only a few thousand tickets that are actually given to red and silver members, because the majority of the stadium is taken up, as we know, by tens of thousands of season ticket holders. This isn't a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that the chances of getting a successful, a successful ballot application, your chances were always going to be very, very low. They just were. They would always going to be very, very low indeed. And so that is just the reality that we find ourselves in regarding this kind of element of fandom. Unfortunately, it has indeed spread quite a bit of xenophobia amongst supporters, and particularly, again, we have the discussion surrounding tourist fans, and tourist fans have been taking the brunt, unfortunately, of this kind of reaction, if you like. I'm just getting up on the screen because thank you for pointing out the spelling error. But yes, the xenophobic response to this, as you can see with the tweet, I've covered up a couple of the words used in the tweets. It's just not very family friendly at 8 o'clock in the morning. But a tweet from this account, Max, who proudly embellishes it with the United Jack, the United Jack, the Union Jack in his handle, which is the sign of a real strong guy, says, lost the Arsenal ballot again. What's the effing? I don't know why I covered up the other word and not that point. What's the effing point? He says, even being a silver member anymore, genuinely missed 2 games all effing season and don't even get to go to the biggest one of my lifetime. For the picture, I'm assuming Max is in his 20s, so I don't know if it's going to be the biggest game of his life. But this tweet obviously went quite mad. It's got 1.5 million interactions or kind of engagements. It's got 7.3 thousand likes on it as well. And I did want to highlight one of the responses from one of the more, reasonable, grounded fans, Jez, who replied saying, people have to stop with the tourists, you know what thing. More likely it's some ticket tout who has acquired the ticket, who has no intention of going and will sell it on. Overseas fans might only get one shot at going to a game and shouldn't be disparaged. It is just unfortunate. And I think it's always important to highlight these horrible people that say these disgusting things, because it's really important that we do this, because the reality of this is of course, is that there are thousands of fans who are in attendance at this game through the ballot. I guarantee that the majority of people that got tickets through the ballot are not overseas supporters. I guarantee that the majority of people that have got tickets through the ballot will not be overseas fans, because, and I'll tell you for why, the ballot has made it even harder for overseas fans to get tickets for games. Because before, what you could do is you could jump on the queue, sit in the queue, book your seat in advance, and obviously then book your trip. With the ballot, you find out whether or not you've got a seat to the game so late these days that it's priced out thousands of overseas fans to get into games. The ballot has made it harder for overseas fans to get to games. That is the reality of the ballot. And unfortunately, when you have xenophobes like this co-opting this rhetoric that the ballot is giving more opportunity to overseas fans, or as they describe them, tourist fans, he uses a more horrible word than this, lovely Max. But the reality obviously is very, very different. Is the ballot perfect? No. Does it need changing? Yes. It definitely needs to be improved. There needs to be ways of making it even fairer for more fans to get tickets. They should be done well ahead, more ahead in advance, to help those situations that I've just talked about there. But unfortunately, once again, this spreading, and people say, why are you highlighting this tweet? This is only one account. The reason why I'm highlighting it is the 7.3 thousand likes on this tweet, and of course the 1.5 million views that this tweet has got yesterday, as it was tweeted less than a day ago. That's why. And it's so frustrating to see it. And I feel so sorry for, of course, those fans that will read this who are overseas supporters, who are as loyal, as committed, as passionate about Arsenal. And when they are in attendance for these games, will shout as much, if not more, than any fan who's come from the local area. It's a different conversation from a supporter when it's when it's someone who's literally just bought a ticket for the sake of going to the game, a genuine tourist. But we're talking about what people describe as tourist fans. So we're not talking about just tourists, period. We're talking about people who are from overseas, who come to games, who are genuine Arsenal supporters. That's who we are talking about here. That's what we are discussing. So when it comes to these people who are overseas fans, who are incredibly passionate about the club and deserve to go to a game as much as anybody who lives around the corner, and the only reason that you were born around the corner is because of nothing other than luck and happenstance and whatever. It's a complete coincidence that you happen to have been born where you are. And just because, of course, you live abroad does not mean that you are not entitled to support Arsenal or love Arsenal or want to try and go and see Arsenal. And people from overseas spend thousands of pounds in order to go to these games, to commit to be able to go. And they may get to 1 or 2 or 3 games in their entire lifetime, if they're lucky in some certain circumstances. Max, I'm sure, has been to hundreds of games. And yes, it sucks that people who have been to hundreds of games and have been very supportive through perhaps some of the very most, the worst times being an Arsenal fan, may not now get to go to this game because there's a lot more demand for these tickets. There's a lot more people that want to go to these games. Yes, that does suck. And that's where I do think there is something around loyalty that perhaps does need to be discussed regarding ballots and things like this. But quite frankly, would I rather somebody from overseas that's a passionate Arsenal fan get a ticket over this xenophobic idiot? 100%. 100%. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing that atmosphere on Tuesday night. I know I'm very privileged to be able to be in attendance for this game, and I cannot wait to see it. And I'm still critical of the ballot, and I still think it's not the final way, the final version of how you fairly do this while still tackling the problem, which is actually the main problem, which is ticket touting. That is the biggest problem. That's why we have the ballot anyway. It's because of the hundreds of thousands of bot accounts and the thousands of touts that have unfortunately ruined this business. That's why the ballot exists in its purest reason and purest form. That's why we have it. But I think it's really important to highlight these things when they come up and to continue to fight the good fight when it comes to trying to not protect, because I don't necessarily think they need protecting, but support fans from abroad that have as much of a right as anybody else to go and get a ticket. You've seen the phone-ins we've done on this show in the past. We did a very famous phone-in show on the show, which saw somebody come onto the channel and start spouting some horrible stuff, saying they felt like a certain percentage of the stadium should be English. Goodness gracious me, these fools exist, people. They are real. And even they do, in fact, show their faces sometimes. But yeah, it's a shame that people like this are in our fan base, but it's important to highlight them when indeed they do emerge. Right, let's go to part 2 of today's show. Your questions and more right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show. We'll be tackling some of your questions and more. So if you indeed would like to throw them into the chat box, now is the time to do so. I'm very much looking forward to reading through some of your thoughts on today's show. If indeed you've got thoughts on anything we've discussed today, now is the time to throw them into the chat box. It can be anything you like, of course, not just what we discussed today, but questions around that as well, and beyond. Teo says, thanks for shining a light on the issue. Curiously, what percentage of the 1.5 million views is the 7,300 likes? These narrow-minded opinions are not that popular. They will always keep it. It's a really important point. Obviously, that 1.5 million is just kind of how many feeds that tweet has kind of appeared on through retweets and stuff like that. But it still is a very, very prominent kind of tweet amongst the Arsenal fandom right now that a lot of people will have seen. But yes, you are right to point out that still that 7.8 thousand is still going to be a very small percentage, thankfully, of the wider population of people that have any care about this message. But that is it. Owen says, I would genuinely love for someone to question my fandom at a match. I'd very much like to see that too, Owen. Temi says, listening to you through my newly acquired headphones, Tom. Smooth voice. Thank you, Temi. Turns out it was the headphones all along that was the problem, not the show. Matthew says, this is kind of a back and forth about tickets, I guess. If only I can make it back to London to take you up on that offer. And this is in response to Paul says, games used to be part of the season ticket. The club stopped doing this and instead gave season ticket holders the opportunity to buy their normal seat first. It's a bit of a crappy trade-off. Again, we're not here to discuss kind of like, we're not here sitting here praising the ticket system. We know it's not perfect. We know it needs changes. We know it needs improving. What we are here to do is, of course, defend fans who have a right to go to games and shouldn't be subject to the xenophobic abuse that you see from people like Max, unfortunately, on social media. Matt says, Mark, spot on. The cup final policy was set a season or so ago, and it clearly says 100% coverage for a chance for final ticket. Nothing to do with any overseas fans at all. And that's from who says, Max should be grateful as a silver member. He has only missed 2 games. I know many silver members who have lost out many more times than that. It's so true. Paul says we struggle to get fans to games like us versus Palace, and then they complain they can't get a ticket for the Champions League semi-final. Obviously, there is a frustration that you will see, the ground as we saw it on Wednesday, not full, lots of empty seats. And then when a big game comes around, a lot more people want to go to the games. Yeah, I get that. It is choice. It is choice. Should loyalty be given a reward? For sure. Like, I'm sure it can. The problem with that and the nuances about that is that loyal fans who would be at that Palace game, who live abroad, can't be there because, of course, they haven't been successful in a ballot early enough, or they can't afford to get out there for that game, but they happen to be able to afford, or maybe they want to prioritize the funds that they do have to be able to try and get a ticket for a game like PSG. And I absolutely respect that. I absolutely respect that somebody who may only be able to afford to get to one game will chance it to go to that PSG match over, say, a Palace game that means next to nothing. Why shouldn't that person who has only got the funds to be able to apply to that game only try and go for that game? So I absolutely get why they would do that. Jasper says, any links with the right winger in the summer? We can't make the same mistake with Saka next season. Waneri probably needs to play in the midfield. I don't think so. I think if Arsenal sign a wide player, it's more likely to be on the left, and we'll see one of Trossard or Martinelli leave, most likely Trossard. I think Martinelli obviously can operate as a right winger. Waneri obviously can operate as a right winger as well. I would rather see Waneri given more time on the right as kind of Saka's number 2, and then we move to sign more of an attacking midfield option to give us coverage for Ødegaard. That's what I think will happen. Ronald says, if Partey stays and we get Zubimendi, will we get another midfielder? Potentially. I think it's more likely to be kind of an attacking option rather than a defensive midfield option. Obviously, you've got Partey, Zubi, and Rice, who could all play at the 6. You've got Dauman coming through. We've got Miko Marino at the club, of course, as well. We've got loads of options in midfield if we sign Zubi and keep Partey at the club for next season. Robert says, my pal has a 20-year-old who is mentally disabled son who lives for the Arsenal. They hardly get any tickets now in the disabled Ballot. It's so tough. We need a 200,000 capacity stadium. The problem with the capacity increase, of course, is that we have those games like Crystal Palace. So if we increase the capacity, even in our £60,000 stadium, it's pounds 60,000 seater stadium. Obviously, we're in a situation whereby we still struggle to fill it out in certain games. So I just don't really see how on earth that's always going to be the solution to our problems. It's just not. Anyway, moving through some more of your questions. We will obviously look to try and answer as many of them as we can. Top Dog says it's worth moving to North London to accommodate huge stadiums to get higher gate attendance. Imagine that. Imagine being told that to solve the problem, if you want to go to more games, you need to move to London. imagine being told that. Paul says demand will sometimes exceed supply for some games. It's basic economics. It is. There will be more demand for some games than others. But if we improve the stadium capacity, are there going to be more games where the 60,000 is not enough? Or is there enough games so far that 60,000 is not enough to justify a stadium increase? We have seen it in some seasons, but let's be honest, this season it certainly hasn't. Last season it was, but this season certainly not. And that's the trade-off, isn't it? It's a big investment. It means moving elsewhere. Arsenal would probably have to play a season at Wembley, at least. So let's go and see. Let's go to Lucas says, hypothetically, if Arsenal get to the final and if Kai is fit to start, are you starting Kai or Marino? I'm starting Marino. Obviously, he's been the better player. He's fit. He's more in form. I'm going with Marino at centre forward. Tayo says, hi, Tom. Do you see a world in which we get 2 strikers with one of them being hybridized, if that's a word, and a left wing option? We feel that we need to overpower opponents by attacking prowess. I don't think we need to sign 2 strikers. I think we need to sign 2 forwards, and we need to add a centre forward and a wide forward. We've got Kai Havertz. We've got, at the moment, Leandro Trossard. And, of course, we've now got Mikael Marino, who can operate as a very successful centre forward, it turns out. So I think we need 1 centre forward. We need 1 wide forward. We have Kai Havertz at the club anyway. I don't think we need 2. I don't think the second would want to sign for Arsenal necessarily. If you'd already signed 1, why would they want to come when we've already got and already signed a Gyökeres or a Sesko? You're not going to be able to get both of them. Maybe you could get kind of a versatile centre forward that can play in wide areas and attacking midfield like a Mohamed Kudus or a Hugo Ekitike or somebody like that. Maybe you could do that, but it's very unlikely. Christopher says, facts. We didn't lose the league from 13 draws, but the 9 out of the 13 that we dropped 2 points from winning positions. Possible reasons: poor in the game management and mentality. I mean, Chris, we went through this yesterday. We talked about the number of games that Arsenal were absolutely ruined in by ridiculous decisions. There's so many of those 13 draws or those 9 games where we drop points. Yes, there are some, of course, that you definitely look at Arsenal more so. You look at the Chelsea game, you look at the Villa game, you look at the Brentford game. But more than often than not, it was more to do with the ridiculous decisions that we faced. And of course, in those other games that we did drop points, we were still missing the key players that we would have hopefully needed to win those fixtures or improved our scoreline in those games beyond what we ultimately were able to achieve. Pablo says, Tom, question: is there any way for us to see when Odegaard, Saka on the field at the same time? I think there is a chance to see that. I don't think we'll see it this season. Paul says, our stadium capacity will need to increase at some point in the future to continue competing, as our competitors are planning on increasing their own stadium capacities. Paul says, I think if we had an 85,000 capacity stadium, we would fill that for every game. I mean, we won't, Paul, will we? Because we can't fill a 60,000 seat capacity stadium every game. So obviously that's not true. Ronald says, where do you see Jonathan David ending up? He probably would want Champions League football. I don't think it'll be Arsenal. I think he will end up moving somewhere else where he's going to get more guarantees about playing every single week. Anne says, hi, Tom. What do you think about the Real Madrid refereeing controversy? Real Madrid are acting like the victims, and it shows such a lack of class in the biggest football team in the world. So this was a story that kind of broke down yesterday. The Guardian have reported that Real Madrid have denied that they considered Copa del Rey final boycott over the referee. Real Madrid have refused to turn up for pre-match events. The club have previously demanded action from the RFEF. So while they have denied that they ever considered refusing to play the Copa del Rey final against Barcelona because they have boycotted the pre-match kind of open training session and, of course, also the press conference, stuff like that. Basically, what has happened is one of the referees that was due to officiate the game in the Copa del Rey in a press conference, which I've never seen happen from an English point of view. We never see referees have press conferences ahead of the games. It's a bit of a strange one. But Ricardo de Burgos Bengojeta, it sounds Basque, was obviously quite emotional during a press conference where he'd talked about his son basically facing backlash or bullying because of decisions that he'd made in games with Real Madrid in the past. But they confirmed their participation by saying, Real Madrid, faced by rumours that have emerged in the last few hours, Real Madrid wish to communicate that our team has never proposed renouncing playing in tomorrow's final. Our club understands that the unfortunate and inappropriate declarations made by the referees assigned to this game, made 24 hours before the final, cannot stay in a sporting event of global significance, which millions of people will watch. So obviously, despite all of those rumours that they weren't going to play the final, they are going to play the final. There was no announcement at the time that Madrid did not directly explain the decision later, nor did they admit to asking the RFEF to remove De Burgos or the VAR official Pablo González Fuertes. But a statement released an hour later described the referee's remarks as premeditated, using a threatening tone and demonstrating a manifest hostility towards Real Madrid. Yeah, it's a chaotic situation. So to give you any more, I'll just continue reading. This is Sid Lowe's article on the Guardian. You should read it. Of course, Sid, a friend of the channel. Madrid have been angered by a pre-match press conference in which De Burgos and González Fuertes talked about the club's repeated criticism of referees on their TV channel, pushed centre stage and exposed made by protagonists of the preview. Both men appeared to have come with a message to deliver 24 hours before the game. Asked about the pressure they are under, especially from Real Madrid TV, González Fuertes warned of the impact on young officials and said that stronger actions had to be taken. De Burgos Bengojea, meanwhile, was close to tears as he recounted the impact it has on his children. He said, when a child goes to school and people tell him his father is a thief, it's messed up. All I can do is educate my son so that he knows that his father is honourable, show him what refereeing is, and for everyone to reflect on where we want to go. I'd like you all to know it is very hard. Yeah, look, it's a mad scenario. It's an absolutely chaotic scenario, but yeah, it's entirely unsurprising, I think, more than anything else. But hopefully, it will be okay. Harvey, stop shouting in the chat, please. Stop writing in capitals. You don't need to, please. Roy says, Tom, any suggestions for this attacking midfielder so far? No rumours. Not really. Not really needs to be. I don't think at the moment it's too concerning. We're not seeing those links. we will ultimately see, I think, links emerge close to the summer. There's still a lot of players, of course, the club are keen on, that are working on, that there's things going on behind the scenes that we have absolutely no aware of whatsoever. Diallo says, who do you want to qualify for the Champions League along with us at Liverpool? That's the impossible question, is it? Do I really care? I mean, probably care a little bit. I've always had a soft spot for Forest, so Forest I'd quite like. I think they deserve it. Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, and City. I mean, there can be, 3 of teams out of City, Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa. So 2 get to miss out. It would be quite funny if Chelsea and City missed out. I don't think that will happen. I don't like a lot of them. Forest, the only team that I can say I don't mind getting top 5. I don't like Newcastle. I particularly have enjoyed the reaction to a lot of the links with Isak or so on. Man City, of course, should never like. Villa, I don't like because I'm not particularly a big fan of Unai Emery. Or even the fan base, whenever we play them, it's just a pain. Newcastle and Villa fans, for some reason, whenever Arsenal come to town or we play them, my chat box, my comment sections gets filled with Villa and Newcastle fans. I don't know, desperate for relevancy, I guess. I can never quite understand it. But I think I'd rather them over Chelsea and City. So I'll go Forest, Newcastle, Villa, and Chelsea and City to miss out. That'd be great. I'd love to see that, but I don't think that'll happen. Sadiq says, the season I said that Premier League clubs need to reform PGMOL since they financed this institution. We should blame our own club for refereeing standards. Real should try to make a change behind the scenes. I mean, I think standards in the Premier League in terms of refereeing are dreadful. We all know this. You know this. They are absolutely horrendous. Let's hope in the future, of course, that we can see an improvement in this field, but it's unfortunately not going to come anytime sooner. Let's be nice in the chat box to each other, please. Thank you. Owen says, any idea how Berta has settled in? Any info on how he conducts himself or if any charges have been made? From my understanding, he's impressing. He's doing some really positive things. He's not changing too much backroom staff-wise at the moment, to what I'm aware of. But he's going to get backing in the summer. That's for sure. The club are really, really pleased they've got him, and are really happy that they are going to be able to get hold of him between, that they have got hold of him from his point of leaving Atletico and now. And I think it's an exciting time for Arsenal to see what Andrea Berta can do in the summer. And of course, beyond, not just in transfers, but also as well, the scenario with contracts. That's a really, really big thing to consider for this team as well, and making sure that we have that done correctly. Pablo says, how much money does a second place finish get in the Premier League payout compared to the winners or third place? I don't think it's massively different. Premier League finishes payouts, prize money. So it says the 23-24 season saw barely any difference between first and second. It was like 175 million, 175.9 million for first, 175.5 million for second. So there was barely any difference between Arsenal and City last season. So I'm not, and I don't know if that's changed. Broadcast continues to be on the rise. I think the fact Arsenal are going further in the Champions League will absolutely give them a massive, massive boost over, for instance, Liverpool, because Liverpool went out much earlier in the competition. So it could even be that Arsenal finishing second and getting semi-finals of the Champions League will actually help them get more money than Liverpool do this season. But yeah, that is the reality. Lee says, Tom, is it a sign of the times and the fact the fans have been ripped off as Man City have only sold 26,000 of their 32,000 Wembley allocation? Yeah, that's not surprising, is it at all? That's just Manchester City. That's just the reality of that club. Pablo says, I'd hate to see Chelsea make it in the Champions League. Me too, mate. Me too. Trevor says, and that's the problem we've got nowadays. Some people just don't seem to care. I'm not sure what that's in response to, so I'm going to move on. Luke says, yeah, would hate Chelsea, Tottenham and Newcastle to get it. Unfortunately, 2 of the 5 are going to get it. Luke says, to be fair, the Villa run was fun. Forest would have been fun as well. And thank you. Thank you for it. Is a nice jumper, is it not? I've worn this a few times now. It's very nice. And DLS says, Tom, I thought it was a difference of 3 million per league position. It goes way beyond that, though. Like, there's commercial stuff, there's broadcast stuff, there's merit payments, facility fees, just in terms of kind of like the total payout. But like in terms of where you finish, I'm trying to look if there's anything separate, but doesn't really look like there is. So yeah, no, I'm not really seeing too much of a difference. So based on this season, it looks like from the Premier League, it will be about 3 million, 2.9 million difference. Liverpool will get 56.4, Arsenal will get 53.5. So it's a very small difference between the two positions. Taylor says, did you know that Arsenal are the highest rated UEFA coefficient team this season? Didn't know that. Is that from who they've beaten, like Real Madrid? If they beat Real Madrid, you get more coefficients points because you've knocked out the champions. I guess that's how it works. Orange Juice is fairly certain City fans are boycotting matches because of the constant increases in matchday tickets and season ticket issues, which seems to be a growing factor with many clubs. I would understand that if it was at the Etihad, but because it's being played at Wembley, I didn't think that would be the same. I might be wrong. It seems a little bit backwards to boycott the cup final at a different stadium. I thought it was more to do with the club raising ticket prices at the Etihad. So I'm not sure if that does make sense. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. Thank you so much always for listening. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your weekend. I'll be back with you, of course, tomorrow morning bright and early to talk about any more news that drops in the next 24 hours. I hope that you've appreciated some of the topics that we've discussed. Not all of them nice, obviously, but still important to bring up. And I certainly look forward to hearing many more of your thoughts and feelings ahead of the game against PSG, which is madly in just a few days' time now. Crazy. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.